This conference will now be recorded.
Woohoo. I think it's doing it. Should we get started? How's everybody doing today? Enjoying the sunny blue skies? Woohoo.
Never mind, Lynn.
Just a couple housekeeping things real quick. If you have a question, there is a chat box at the top right corner. Just feel free to type any question in and we'll do our best to answer throughout the show. And we'll also take some questions at the end. And then also, if you're not talking, please mute your mic so that we can sort of cut out some of the background noise. And yeah, let's just jump into it. It would be nice if we could do introductions and everyone could just say their name, and if they're a new returning steward, we'll try to go through really quick. Yeah, my name's Hannah Clark. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Colorado 14ers Initiative. I've been working for CFI since 2017. I worked as a crew person on Mount Elbert, and then in 2018, I became the volunteer coordinator. So I do the adopted peak management and coordinate 40 to 70-ish projects with various groups. I do some fundraising and some program support, like manage the fleet vehicles. And then I do general program support, which is just whatever people need me to do. And then manage the Peak Steward program, obviously. And today I'm joined by Loretta McEllhiney from the Forest Service, and also Terry Madison and Scott Goldberg, who are volunteer Peak Stewards and have been helping with training for a long time, which is great. But I'm just going to start at the top of my screen and just call out your name and then maybe just say hello. Glenn, how are you today?
I'm good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Mazenko. I'm calling from Evergreen, Colorado. This is my second year as a Peak Steward. I'm also in my second year as a member of the board. So looking forward to another good year.
Just plug it in my laptop. Forgot that part. Teresa. Hi, Teresa. Great to see you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Teresa, and I'm in the Vail area. And I've been a Peak Steward for, I believe, almost 10 years. And it's very dear to my heart, this amazing opportunity to help support our mountains, especially now with so many people coming. So very nice meeting all of you. Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi. Thanks so much, Hannah. Karen Garcia. I'm new to the program and pretty avid hiker and 14er person. I also have noticed quite an increase of people on the trails these last years, and I'd like to do whatever I can to kind of give back and try to help our overall cause to make our mountains a good place to be.
Hi, Chelsea.
I'm Chelsea Hammer. I live in Vail and I'm new to this area. I've wanted to volunteer with CFI for about 5 years now, so this is my first year and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Woohoo. Hi, Jenna. Welcome back.
That from me, Hannah? Hannah, was that for me?
Yeah, Jenna, how are you?
Okay, good. Looks like we do have some background noise though. So, yeah, just a second, sorry. Yeah, I'm Jenna, Jenna Yeager from Genesee. This will be my third year in the program. I kind of split my time between various activities, the CFI being one of my favorite, but I'm also on the trail crew and do a lot with CTF as well.
Thanks, Jenna. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, how are you? I'm Margaret. This is my second year. I had way too much fun the first year, helping to educate people on leave no trace and just whatever other issues they have on the trail. Just an avid hiker, mountaineer. Love to see our mountains stay in really nice shape and help people get up to the top of them.
Yeah. And Greg.
Yes, hi, Anna. Yeah,
Hello.
I'm new to the program, and I've lived in the Fraser Valley, Winter Park area for 40 plus years. We have moved to Montrose area and live primarily over there. So I'd be interested in helping out with the 14ers more in the San Juans and on the Front Range. That would be my interest if that works out, program.
Great.
I got one 14er left to do. We left the easiest one to last, Capitol Peak.
Woohoo.
I don't know how that happened, but it did. And so yeah, I've been a lifelong outdoors person, and my wife and I, we really good companions in hiking together. And you know, coming from Fraser Winter Park, we know the high country, no winners, that's for sure. So yeah, it's our home, mountains, western slope.
Well, great. We're glad to have you, Greg. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for coming back.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'm Mary O'Malley, and this will be my third year back as a steward, and I just really enjoy helping out CFI, especially in this age of overrun trails. So it's a lot of good work that we do out there as stewards, I think. So happy to be back.
Happy to have you. Hi, Linda. If you can't say hi or don't know how to unmute, then just give us a wave. Awesome. And Patrick and Kayla are here. Hi, guys.
Did you get Laura? I'm here.
Okay.
Shall I go?
Yeah, Laura, hi. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Sorry. If my name says Linda, that would be my fault. That's my mother's name, and she's on my mind right now. But my name is Laura. I can't see what I typed.
You are
I
indeed
just
Laura.
finished the workout, so I'm a little bit yucky. But that may be my music you hear in the background. Anyhow, I'm new as a Peak Steward interest. I've done several 14ers. I moved to Colorado last summer from Texas, and absolutely love hiking here, being in the mountains. I'm also a crew leader in training with Rocky Mountain Field Institute, so I work with them on trails closer to the springs, and just learning about getting involved with trail maintenance, open space, stewardship, all that. So I'm super excited to be getting involved with CFI and getting on Yale, which is the first project I studied for.
Woohoo! Glad to have you. And then Patrick and Kayla, I think I cut you guys off.
Hey guys. Yeah, we're back. I think this is our third year now. Yeah, we just love getting out there in the mountains every weekend and just trying to get back to the overrun trails. So try to educate people too.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Hi, Vaughn. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Vaughn Campbell from Colorado Springs. This is my second year doing Peak Steward. Last year was very interesting, to say the least. I remember being on Bierstadt and just 1,000 people plus in one day. It was interesting, especially during the COVID situation. I've done 47 14ers. I'm supposed to be going to Nepal in September to trek the Himalayas. It's been canceled twice, and it looks like it's going to be canceled a third time. So we'll see what happens. I guess all the problems in India has overflowed to Nepal, but anyways, I'll do anything to get up on any mountain. So
Awesome. Priscilla. Hi, Priscilla.
Hey, Hannah. Hey, everybody. I, like Glenn, I'm a returning Peak Steward from first time last year, and then I'm also a board member, a second-year board member. We really had a good time getting out and talking to people on, let's see, Bierstadt and Quandary last year were our main peaks that I'm looking forward to getting out there again this year and hopefully spreading the word and taking care of our mountains.
Yeah, Priscilla had the most hiker contacts last season. It was like over 850 some in a day, which was on
I lost my voice that day. It's like, Todd, you'll have to take over. My husband Todd is on there too. Anyway,
oh yeah, Todd's here too.
I totally lost my voice, so.
They went out together and managed to talk to over 800 people that day. So that's pretty insane.
Yeah, I hope we don't have a year like that. We also just signed up to be trail ambassadors in our little area, Green Mountain Falls. We're up west of Colorado Springs, and so we're gonna do a little work up here as well.
Yeah, I think everything that we learned from the Peak Steward program can be used on our backyard trails as well. Those are important too.
We were so overrun up here last year with hikers, and it just got crazy. So yeah.
And then Tim's here. Tim, are you joining us from Idaho?
Hi, yes, I'm in Boise, Idaho. Delighted to be back again this year. Last year was my first year. My first backpacking trip in Colorado was in 1974. I've always been drawn to Colorado, but somehow never managed to move there. Boise's not a bad place to live. Idaho's a beautiful state as well. I'll be volunteering in Yosemite later this month, doing some work in the new annexed part of Yosemite. And usually I'm the out-of-stater on these kinds of things, so you can just call me the guy from Idaho. So great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, Todd.
Good morning, Hannah. Nice to see you and everybody else. What else do I say? We're going to go out.
That's great. That's perfect.
We're going to go stand on those busy peaks again and talk to everybody again.
Awesome. We're glad to have you back, Todd. Hi, Drake. You must be a new steward.
Yes. We are gonna go hike Pikes Peak soon, and we want to hike all the 14ers, but we've only done 6 so far. So,
and 6 is a good start.
Oh yeah, and my sister is gonna be joining us, but she's not here right now, so she's just gonna watch the video.
Well, great. We are excited to have you. Thanks for coming. And then we have another Jenna Lowery. Am I saying that right?
Lowry, but that's okay. No one can pronounce it, so I forgive you. Hi, everyone.
We have Jennifer Lowry too.
Yeah, yes, I noticed that. So very similar names here. But hi, everyone. I'm Jenna, and I am volunteering for the first year, but I am very passionate about mountains and sustainability, so I'm really excited to be a part of the group and hopefully get out there every weekend.
Awesome. And Joshua, good morning.
Hi, Josh, please, if you don't mind. This is my first year. I just moved to Nathrop, Colorado from Colorado Springs. I also work for the Forest Service, but not in the capacity that you would think. I'm an IT guy, so I work remote. I live in a little community at the base of Antero, so probably be spending quite a bit of time with Mr. Jim Skelding out here in the Swatch Range. avid mountain ultra runner guy, retired military guy. So yeah, just looking forward to getting out there and helping out.
One of those crazy ultra runners. Great. And is this Gary? It says owner, but I'm guessing.
You got it, Hannah.
I got it. Woo.
It's me. This is my 3rd year. I'm in Evergreen.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back. Sharon, how are you today? It's good to see you on here.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, everybody. I'm Sharon Thompson. I'm doing great. Good to see you. Can you hear me?
We can, indeed.
Great. Double timing it today. Multitasking. This is my 7th year, and Hannah and Terry and the whole CFI crew have been awesome. I love it. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, and found out one year I had a torn meniscus and quad on quandary, and told my doctor to hurry up and get it taken care of so I can get back out there on the trail. So excited to see everybody and excited for the season to get started, and happy to be able to enjoy nature and also be a good steward and help take care of it as well.
Thanks, Sharon. We're glad to have you. And then Grumpy's here. How are you, Jim? Jim Day? Maybe he's just observing from afar. He goes by Grumpy on the trail, so that's why I called him Grumpy. And Loretta's here. Hi, Loretta.
Hi, everyone. I'm Loretta McEllhiney. I'm the Colorado 14ers Program Manager for the USDA Forest Service, and I've been doing this my entire career. So I get out there and do a little bit of peak stewarding when I am out on the trails, often trying to help you guys out, and I appreciate all of you being here. We need the education. You guys all saw what was going on last year. Some of our trails were seeing 200 to 400% increases in use. So we are expecting another heavy use year. So anytime you can get out there, I'm sure that the mountains will appreciate it.
Thanks, Loretta. Terry.
Yeah, hi, I'm Terry Madison. I started with CFI many years ago. Worked on several trail projects and then got too old to haul rocks around. So I've been a peak steward for, I think this is my 8th year, and I've been kind of the coordinator or co-coordinator of the program, most of the duties of which we've handed over to Hannah for maybe the last 6 years. So, and you'll hear too much from me later, so I'll shut up.
Thanks, Terry. Hi, Jim Skelding. It's good to put a face to the emails. There's a little mic button at the bottom towards the middle if you move your mouse over the screen. It should say mic. We'll go to Laura. Oh, we already heard from Laura. Hi, Laura. And then somebody that says group organizer, which I'm not sure if I recognize.
That's me. I apologize. I'm Carrie. It connected me through my work email, and I am normally the group organizer in those chats, so that's why it has me listed. But I'm Carrie Sapino. I'm in Colorado Springs. This is my first year as a Peak Steward. I earlier this year completed my Leave No Trace Trainer certification course, and I've been working to do awareness workshops around the state, and was really interested, just because I do a lot of 14ers, and learning more about the Leave No Trace ethics, specifically surrounding high alpine ecology. So I'm super excited to be a Peak Steward this year.
Awesome. Yeah, I noticed the LNT folks updated their online training course, and I thought they did a great job with that. If anyone hasn't seen it, head over to lnt.org. If you need a little more LNT training after today, too. Scott Goldberg's here to help us with training.
Hi. Hi, my name's Scott. I've been a steward since I think 2008 and moved out here in 78. Still have my original halyard bar tent, and I enjoy working with CFI. They've always done a great job ever since I've been around. And last year I had to take some time off because of the COVID thing, but back this year and hope to see everybody up there.
Thanks, Scott. And then Jennifer Lowry.
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I got my kids in the background. Hey, I'm based out of Buena Vista, Colorado, and this is my 4th year. And Sharon, I think you mentored me 4 years ago on Quandary.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So great to hear your voice.
And Jennifer was the Peak Steward of the Year last year. So I guess you really did have a good mentor. Yeah, woohoo.
Love it. I talked to Dylan last week too, so it's really good to see you back.
Awesome. And Steven's back again, Steven Alberico. For some reason we can't hear you, but are you there? Just some lovely bird sounds.
Love the chirp.
Uh-huh. And then I saw Jim Crothers is on. Jim, do you want to say hi? Jim C? Okay, well, maybe he's observing as well. But Jim has been a Peak Steward since the start of the Peak Steward program in 2000, which is pretty cool. Did I get everybody that was able to talk or say hello? Yell out if I missed you for some reason. Okay. Well, I am going to share my screen and just start this little presentation here. And then we're gonna turn it over to Loretta, and she's gonna do an alpine ecology presentation, which is always very informative and interesting. From beginning. Ta-da, okay. So this is our mission, to protect and preserve the natural integrity of Colorado's 14,000-foot peaks through active stewardship and public education. That's what we try to do every day. CFI was formed in 1994 after a group of concerned individuals saw some of the increased resource damage that was happening on the 14ers, and founding organizations joined with the Forest Service, and those founding organizations were CMC, Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado, Rocky Mountain Field Institute, Leave No Trace. Like I said before, the Peak Steward program got started in the year 2000. Jim actually sent me an article from the newspaper of that year, and we were looking for 15 to 20 Peak Stewards for service work just on the Front Range 14ers. And last year we had over 50 people volunteering as Peak Stewards, and they went to almost every single district, which is pretty cool. We've grown. We have just 5 full-time staff here in the office in Golden. Well, only 4 that work out of the office, 1 that works out of the Buena Vista area, 2 people that work 9 months out of the year, 24 seasonal employees were just recently hired and are going through staff training this week. And then I think we have 18 board members this year. And then we partner with the land managers, and Loretta designs our trails, and we go out and put the boots on the ground. It can take a number of years to plan a trail and design it, which Loretta could tell you way more about. And then we have to find the money to pay people who are crazy enough to do this job, basically. Our 2020 field season is looking pretty exciting. We wrapped up 2 big projects last year, the South Elbert Trail in Columbia. So we are doing a little construction, maintenance, restoration work on the North Mount Elbert Trail. We are also starting some work on Mount Wilson, which doesn't see a huge number of hikers, but we're trying to mitigate some of the resource damage out there and catch it early and just make a nice sustainable trail out there. We are working for the 3rd year on Grays and Torreys Peaks, doing some trail delineation and construction. We'll be back in the Lake City 14ers working on both the BLM peaks and the Forest Service peaks that are down there with a small 2-person crew. We work with Youth Corps and a few different Youth Corps groups, and they come out and help us. We also have 40 volunteer projects-ish planned for this year, which will probably be around 700 individuals contributing to 12 to 1,400 volunteer days. We're doing the Peak Steward hiker education program, of course, and then we'll also be placing 22 infrared trail counters on the peaks. So on different routes around the state to keep up with our hiking use estimates that we have going on out there. So this is our data from 2019. Our 2020 data isn't compiled yet. So 2019 hiking use actually decreased by 18%, and this was due to the record snowpack year that we had that year. In 2018, we saw more like 353,000 hiker use days on the 14ers, and we imagine 2020 is going to be even more over the 2018 data. So as you can see, Quandary Peak is getting hammered. That peak for the first time in the last couple years has started to beat Mount Bierstadt as the most hiked 14er. And I'm gonna hand it over to Terry to talk about the Peak Steward program a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. And just real quickly, because we'll talk more later, just wanted to emphasize the Peak Stewards we play a key role in one part of the mission statement, and that is the piece on hiker education. Hannah didn't give the number, but what did we contact last year? 10,000 or more last year, Hannah, is that correct?
Yeah, it was over 10,000.
Yeah, so we had a big impact on that hiker education component. So all I want to emphasize right now is to get you sort of thinking, especially you new folks, our goal as stewards when we're up there on duty is to talk to people. So I always say, if you have to choose between climbing the mountain and talking to hikers, please choose talking to hikers. And I'll talk a little bit more about where I go. But I think last year, everybody really took that to heart, and that's why we saw a huge increase in our hiker contacts. So just want you to start getting that in your head, that our job is talking. And from there, let's move ahead. I guess, Scott, you're up next.
Sorry about that. Am I on? Yeah. Terry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, all right, cool.
You're
No
fine.
trace.
Just go
All
for it.
right, so I'm doing the leave no trace. It sounds like Carrie, she was an instructor in this, so man, I think your future is probably going to be on the screen here pretty soon. You know, LNT is pretty much what we preach. It used to be, you know, leave only footprints, take only photos, but these days it's not even leave footprints. It's stay on the sustainable trails as much as you can and don't go wandering off. So anyway, the 7 principles, we'll go over that real quick. It's right in front of you there. Plan ahead and preparing. That pretty much starts in your morning. Now, you know, we're all peak stewards, so hopefully we all have a lot of experience in just being out there in the alpine environment. But you know, that includes having the right equipment for where you're planning to go. I always have more stuff in my pack than I'll ever need, because my mentor always said you should be prepared to spend the night, no matter if you're 100 yards away from your car. So I've got enough to bivvy. I've got it, you know, I hand out water. I've got all kinds of stuff. I carry a pretty heavy pack. Looks a little ridiculous. But anyway, that's, you know, that's the first part. Secondly is, okay, where am I going to be going? Choosing your routes, choosing the peaks you're going to be at, and then letting people know where you'll be and what to do if they don't hear from you when you're supposed to return. You know, I have a phone number for search and rescue or things like that, or carry a beacon of some sort. You should also talk about getting off the mountain by a certain time to avoid the weather that's coming in, and have all the right gear again to spend the night, or to spend if you get stormed out, to hang out there. Secondly is travel and camping on durable surfaces. That's what I was talking about. CFI is very good at making the trails and, you know, keeping the trails good for us, for all hikers. And so we want to encourage people to use those trails and not go off on their own and make their own trails, because, you know, you get up 1,000 people on Bierstadt in a day, or Quandary, and you'd have, you know, 1,000 different trails coming down. So that's a big part of what we do, is to keep people on the trails that we make. Like I said, when I moved out here in '78, there were game trails, and there was a few trails here and there, but, you know, people were not up on the 14ers as much as they are now. So you pretty much had to bushwhack your own way up on a lot of the peaks. We don't want you to camp close to the trails. You know, we don't like seeing the camps set up right alongside the trail. If we have the LNT cards to hand out, whenever I see a tent too close to a trail and the people are gone hiking, I always leave the tag on the tent, you know, to let them know, like, hey, you know, move this tent over. And the same thing with being too close to a water supply. You don't want them too close to a water supply. So that's a big deal as well. We always encourage people to not camp above tree line, to stay down below the alpine, so that you're not messing with the environment up there. And Loretta's going to touch on the alpine environment more. But, you know, we encourage people, hey, you know, stay down below where you got lots of resources, and you're not subject to weather as much, and also you're not going to ruin things above the tree line. I can see the PowerPoint. And again, staying on the trail, not walking through the mud. When we used to give the talks at REI, I'd always say, well, you're buying these new boots here, you know, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go walk right through the mud with them, because that's what they're for. You know, please don't walk around them. You'll see people walking around, and it's like, no, man, go right through it. You're a mountain climber now. You know, go get them dirty. Disposing of waste properly. Again, that's the pack it in, pack it out idea. I always carry a little trash bag in my pack, and as I'm going along, I also got gloves, and I'll pick up as much as I can and pack it back out. I do not leave anything behind. And when I'm camping, if I'm overnighting it, you know, we're fastidious about not leaving a trace that we were there. I do not use fire rings or anything like that. I just, you know, cook all my food. But that was drilled into me by my mentor. So I have a hiking partner who goes around and destroys fire rings when he sees them. He's that adamant about it, but I'm not like that. But anyway, and also, you know, we're going to talk about peeing and pooping a lot. Seems like, well, that's one of our favorite subjects, but we like to dispose of waste, meaning also human waste. And lately, instead of, you know, you'll read things, oh yeah, you got to put it a certain amount of feet or inches under the ground when you poop. We're saying poop, pack it back out. You know, you should carry your own poop all the way back out and dispose of it when you get out of the wilderness areas.
Yeah, has everyone seen what a wag bag is? Sorry to jump in on you, Scott. This is a wag bag. It's basically like a bag that you poop in, and they're great if you're in the alpine and you need a bathroom. It has TP in it, and it's just that really human waste is not going to break down in the alpine. There is not any bacteria up there to break it down effectively and efficiently. So these are great. Our trail crews basically poop in groovers, which is just a bucket, and we pack out all of their waste every year. And I have seen 55-gallon buckets worth of waste hauled off 14ers in a season. But you can imagine if that is left on a 14er, it's just, I mean, it's our water supply. So do what you can, do your part to pack out your waste. It's really important. Dog poop too. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, and I don't know about you, but lately it's really ruined my day. You go around a corner and in the bushes, here's somebody had pooped there and the toilet paper spun all over the bushes. And I mean, you can tell that's what they're doing there. It's like, why? You know, I don't get it. You got to pack it back out, please. And then also, because a lot of the animals like the mountain goats and such, they will dig out whatever you try and bury. And also, if you're peeing, you know, what we've talked about is peeing on a durable surface as well, because they will, you know, they're so salt starved that they will come along and chew up or lick whatever you pee on. The marmots, all the animals up there are all salt starved. So they will follow you around, especially like out in Chicago Basin. They're real aggressive with it. You get up in the middle of the night to go pee and you got like 2 or 3 of them following you around just waiting for you to pee. So anyway, leaving what you find. If you come across artifacts of mining, because most of the areas that we go to are mining places, or there's even, I think, a law that if it's, and Loretta can help me out there, but I think if it's more than 50 years old, it's against the law to remove it, no matter what it is. Something like that. I might be off base. But anyway, leaving what you find. Don't take trophies. Don't take, you know, like, I used to joke with a friend of mine because he'd take a rock off the top of every 14er, and it's like, well, some of these 14ers are like Huron or whatever is like 14,001 foot. So if you take a rock off it, it'll turn it into a 13er. So, you know, but anyway, leave what you find. Take photographs. You don't need trophies. You sure don't need to, you know what I can't stand is people that write on the rocks at the top, you know, that they were there, or that this, what peak that is. I think it's bad enough that they bring cardboard up there because they leave it behind. And there's like, I went up on Grays and I found 5 different cardboards with 5 different altitudes for Grays. And I was like, what the heck? Can't you just look it up and write it down? It's like, that was pretty funny, but they leave it up there for somebody else to take a photograph of. And then by the end of the day, there's just a ton of cardboard up on the top of the mountain. I think that's kind of silly. Minimizing campfire impacts. We've talked about that. I don't like campfires. It's a long way for a fire crew to come up there and put it out in case it gets out of hand. but you know, that's a personal decision. If you are using a campfire, you should use a regular fire ring that is put in place for that particular thing to do. It shouldn't be just out in the middle of nowhere, you and a bunch of people just making this giant fire. Respecting wildlife, and again, we'll talk more about that later. But you want to understand that this is their home, not yours. And it sure isn't your dog's house when you bring a dog with you. You know, that's the problem, is that dogs will interrupt their feeding cycle a lot because, you know, they don't have a lot of food in the wintertime, so they're trying to scarf it down during the summertime. And if your dog is chasing them around up there, they're not going to get enough food to last through the winter in them. And Loretta will talk more about that. But again, you know, if it's there, you know, take a picture of it, respect it, go around it, go whatever, and then move on. But it's their place first. And be considerate of other visitors. It reminds me of when some people went running by with boom boxes on their shoulders all the way up the hill, but you know, they don't have boom boxes anymore. Or people will be talking about the stock market. Like, we'll be walking up the mountain, here's this guy talking about, oh, I'm going to invest in such and such. It's like, dude, you know, really, can you leave this stuff back in the city? That we're in the backcountry here. You know, let's talk about the backcountry or how beautiful it is. But you know, interrupting everybody's enjoyment of the outdoors is a big part of leaving no trace. You want to leave that back in the city and you know, embrace where you're at. Did I miss anything?
Thanks, Scott. Over to you, Terry.
Okay. Yep, I guess I'm next on the agenda. So we've talked in general about the leave no trace, but I wanted to run through fairly quickly for you. I'll go fast because we're kind of behind schedule here, but I will move quickly as to what, at least what my day as a peak steward is typically like. And you'll have to develop your own precise schedule, but this is pretty standard of how it goes for me. So especially for the new folks, you might be interested in this. First thing is, we do not assign you peaks to go and do your steward duty on. You get to choose whichever peaks you want to go to. We do ask that you go out at least 4 times during the summer, 4 steward days during each summer. And again, you can choose the days and the peaks you want to go to. We do say, try if you can, if it makes sense at all, to go to the high volume peaks where you're going to see a lot of people, because again, our goal is to talk to people, and therefore we want you to go where the people are. So again, those are places like Quandary and Bierstadt, Grays and Torreys, Elbert, maybe to some extent Sherman. Lincoln, Democrat, and Bross are typically high volume places we like to emphasize, but there's a bit of an issue around that this year. Right now they're closed. So we hope that they'll open up again, but right now, unless Hannah and Loretta have heard anything in the last 24 hours, it's still up in the air. But so if you can, do your steward duty on the high volume peaks. And of course, the best days for talking to people are Saturday and Sunday. That's when we get the highest volume of traffic. Although I know I've been on Bierstadt during the middle of the week and still talk to a couple hundred people. So you can do it on the high volume peaks almost anytime. And I think Hannah a little later will be providing a list of the priority peaks that we want people to emphasize. Next is what do you wear? In general, of course, I'm assuming all of you are outdoor people enough to know what to wear to take care of yourselves. But also you want to have, how are you going to identify yourself as a peak steward? A good example is the picture that you can see there now. The guy on the right is a peak steward, and he's got, you can see what sort of look like official-ish kind of stuff. I wear this shirt. You can see an olive green shirt. Your name tag, which you'll have, helps identify you as somebody who's not just out there hiking. I always wear my Peak Steward cap so they can see something there. You're just trying to identify yourself as being there for some kind of a job, and then people will often even approach you to ask you what you're doing. I always carry a folder like this, which I use to help tick off information, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, what I track. The folder, and I have a little clicker, like one of these things where you can click on when you see people. I use the clicker to just keep track of how many people I see, whether I talk to them or not. So I can just click, 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 click as people are walking by, and then that gives me my total count of people that I've seen for the day. In the notebook, I have it so I could just do tick marks of how many people I actually talked to. And then I also tick off how many people I saw with dogs and how many of those dogs were on the leash and how many of those dogs were off leash. Those are the two major things. And then the other thing I do also keep track of is how many people do I see who don't appear to be prepared in terms of clothing or whatever for an alpine experience. So that I put in here, I tick off, and then that all goes into the report that you file at the end of a day. So that's how I get started. If you can, I don't know, Loretta, where are you? You're here somewhere. Wave your hand, Loretta, so they can pick you out. She has what I call a sort of tan colored official Forest Service shirt color. If you can get one that looks like that, they'll really think you're an official person if you have a name tag to go with it. So, and also early in the morning, it's a little cold, so you may have, jacket or vest or whatever on, and I try and put the name tag on the outside all the time so people can see it. So that's it. On the day of when I'm doing steward duty, I typically, try to camp somewhere near, if it's possible, the trailhead. And then I try to get to the trailhead no later than 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm usually there earlier than that, so that I can catch most people and get a reasonably accurate count and actually talk to a lot of folks. If you don't get there till 6, you will miss some people who are going up. And then I usually stay long enough to start seeing those early climbers as they come down, and I'll click them off as they come down. And then after a while, I see people that maybe I remember, so I ask them, "Did I talk to you already?" And then I know to quit adding them to the list. So I get there about 6 o'clock in the morning. I usually spend quite a bit of time at the trailhead. And again, that reflects my belief that our job is to talk to people, and the easiest place to talk to people is at the trailhead right as they're getting started. And I will just kind of stop them for a second, introduce myself, tell them, I can give you my spiel. It takes just a minute or so. I say, "Hi, I'm Terry. I'm a volunteer with the Colorado 14ers Initiative. We work on the 14ers to try and help protect the mountains because of all the traffic that's there." And of course, if you're on Bierstadt or Quandra, you can say, today here, we'll probably see 500 people. So we're trying to protect the mountains if we can. And that's about all I say about CFI. Well, I do mention that we also do trail building and trail maintenance. I emphasize probably 5 points from the leave no trace stuff that Scott just talked about. The ones I really emphasize is, first of all, staying on the durable surfaces, either hiking on the trails, and I always say, hey, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money working on these trails. Use them, please use them to protect the mountain. I also tell them if you're going to stop for a break, take your break on brown, not on green. Don't go find a nice meadow to sit down on for your rest or for your lunch. Sit on a rock, sit on brown stuff, because it takes very few people walking on this vegetation in the alpine to kill it. And then it takes years and years, maybe never, to come back. So please don't wear down any more of that. I talk about disposing of waste properly. Used to be, again, as we've talked, mostly I would talk about pick up after your dog, but now we talk a lot also, as everybody talked about, human waste as well. So if they're going to have to take a bowel movement up there, they should please have some means of carrying it out with them. Also, I talk about peeing, which is also a good way to get a laugh. Tell people, please don't pee on the vegetation. Pee on things that the animals aren't going to go eat when they come after your salt. And I always use Scott's story about marmots following you to watch you pee so they can get at the salt, and people are entertained by that kind of a story. I don't know if it was Scott or someone else said they were once almost too embarrassed to pee because this marmot was staring at them so hard they just didn't know if they could get it done. So anyway, leave what you find. That's pretty self-explanatory. Just don't take anything out with you. If you have to take something, take a photograph, and we'll all believe that you were there. Respecting wildlife, keeping distance, of course, it is wildlife. And again, that's where you emphasize, once again, having your dog on a leash, not only to protect the wildlife, but to protect the dog. Because if they get up there where some of those goats are, the goats don't like dogs real well. And those horns that mountain goats have are reasonably sharp. So I always tell them you're going to protect your pet by doing that. And then lastly, be considerate of others. Again, the noise thing that Scott talked about, I did one day learn a lot more than I ever wanted to know about the effect on the female breast of having babies, as I heard some women talking for about a half a mile coming up the trail, and they were sharing stories about what had happened to them. So, and then the pets, once again, a lot of people don't like dogs, are afraid of dogs. So, and a nice friendly dog will run up to somebody and you'll say, oh, don't worry, they're friendly, but people don't care. They're afraid of them. So keep your dog on a leash. So those are the main things I always talk about. Obviously, if they don't have a dog, I don't get into the dog things nearly as much, but you tailor it a little bit to everybody. And again, I can do that whole thing in maybe a minute or two, so you don't delay people because they're always anxious to get climbing up the mountain if they can. We talked about the numbers. Again, if you go to those high volume peaks, you're going to see, I mean, on a Saturday on Bierstadt or Quandary, you might see 1,000 people. And you might have a chance to talk to 6, 7, or if you're like Priscilla, 850 of those people. And that's good. That's our goal, is to talk to folks, and they always want to talk. The other thing that's good is really listen and take a few notes on Loretta's information that she's going to give us a little bit later, because people will have questions about, you know, what are those little cute animals that are pikas? And you can talk about a lot of things up there based on the information that Loretta is going to provide us in a little while. Again, if you choose to hike on the mountain, that's fine, but make a point to talk to people. I usually either hang out at this trailhead or I will walk up to some place where people tend to stop and rest. And there are usually some obvious places on each of the mountains. The most obvious ones are on Grays and Torres. There's an area, a place where the trail splits. Everybody comes through there, so you can sit there and talk. If we get back into Lincoln, Democrat, and Bross, when they climb up, there's a saddle between Lincoln and Democrat. That's a good place to stop because everybody goes through there. They usually stop to take a break there. And there are a couple of obvious spots on the way up Bierstadt, a little less so on Quandary, but you can usually find places where it just feels like, okay, people are probably going to stop here and want to take a breather. If you are getting up in the mountain, those are perfect places to stop and just sit there for an hour or two and talk and give your spiel to everybody who walks by. And lastly, when you get done each day, you see on the screen now the Peak Steward log, the report form. It's available online. I download it each year, and then all I have to do is click on it and open it, fill everything out, and then at the bottom there's a place where you click on it to submit it to Hannah, and it takes 5 minutes to fill that thing out, and then she's able to have a complete record of what we've done during the summer. So please make a point to remember to do that either when you get home that night or the next day. And by the way, in terms of time, as I said, I usually am started by 6 o'clock in the morning. I am almost down and back to my car by noon, because by then almost everybody who's going to climb has started up the mountain and you've had a chance to talk to them. And then you can get off the mountain before the lightning strikes and kills you. So, you know, those are always good things to think about. And I guess that really covers, again, very quickly, what I tend to do. We'll have a few minutes if you have questions about any of that a little bit later, but why don't we jump in and Scott can talk about the kinds of things that you're going to run into, what to expect when you're up there talking to folks, and you know, what kind of challenges you might run into when you're doing your duty. So take it, Scott.
Terry, that was awesome. Thanks again for that. I'm going to talk about how to get into what we do, and what we do is mostly talk to people, and it's really funny because I was never much of a person that, you know, I was kind of an introvert my whole life, and I joined CFI, and my daughter came up climbing with me one time, and where I'm doing my Peak Steward thing, and she was like, "When did you turn into this social person?" So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and the more you talk, your spiel will get better and better as time goes on. A lot of places have built-in places where you can actually meet with the hikers, you know, before they get on the trail. I'm thinking of like Bierstadt has the bathrooms, and you go in the morning, and you know, all you see is a big long line. There's like 50 people waiting to use the bathroom. I always like nab all of them right off the bat. It's like, hey, how you doing? Talk to them about, you know, have they ever been here before? Have they ever hiked a 14er before? Especially in a place like Bierstadt, there's a lot of first timers there. Hey, I notice you're wearing blue jeans. You know, you can talk about cotton kills and things like that. Are you prepared for the environment? Do you have food and water and snacks and you know, all the right things? Talk about that. Talk about how much fun they're going to have. Talk about, you know, staying on the trails. I mean, they're kind of a captive audience. They're waiting to use the bathroom, so it's a good place to nab people. Same place at Torrey's and Gray's, right there where you start off in the parking lot. Early in the morning, there are people all over the place, and a lot of them, they're in a hurry to go, but they'll stop, and they stop at they've got the maps on the big wooden panels there, and they love to stand there. And if you stand there, they'll chat with you because they're like, oh, you're somebody that knows what they're doing. Tell me about this place, and tell me what I should expect, and do you think we'll be able to make it up there, and you know, that type of thing. So just be engaging with them, and just be ready for all kinds of questions. They make a t-shirt now that says, are we almost, you know, it's like answering the question, are we almost there? And it says, yeah, you're about a quarter mile away, which is a big lie. That's what everybody will tell you on the way down, right? Oh, you're almost there. You're almost there. You're almost there. You're on Elbert. You've only got 5 more peaks to go before you get to Elbert. But, oh, it's right over that last peak there. People are, at first, you know, when we first started doing this, they didn't know who the heck we were. And it seems like as the years went on and on and on, and we got, you know, we became like the hip thing. Like everybody wanted to take a picture with the Peak Steward, and they all wanted to know, you know, how can I get involved? How can we, do you want a donation? And they're trying to hand you money. It's like, no, we can't do that here. But all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know all about CFI. I read about it on 14ers.com. You guys are the best. You're the greatest. You know, you're wonderful. And it's like, well, okay, that's us, you know. They really, as time goes on, they tend to know who we are and what we're there for and what we're about. So people are pretty friendly. I mean, I've had a couple of people get in my face over this whole thing, like mostly trail cutters that are there for the first time, and they just think, hey, I can do whatever I want. And you know, a couple of them are like, hey, who invited you to crash my party? It's like, well, and you deal with that. You just kind of let it go. You know, you try and engage them, try and instruct them, try and educate them, but a lot of them are not there to listen to you. So when you're there, and then I usually leave and go about halfway up, find a place, and talk to people there. And then eventually, you know, a lot of times I'll make my way up to the summit by the end of the day. I spend like 12, 13 hours on the mountain in the day. So by the time I get up to the top and all the way back down again, you know, it's been a long day. I tend to like contact people who I notice, and I call a lot of the peaks are like divorce peaks or breakup peaks, because people will bring their boyfriends, girlfriends, significant others up there and say, hey, you want to go climbing? And there's, oh, no, not really. Well, yeah, come on, it'll be great. And then they get like 2/3 of the way up, and that person does not want to go any further, but they want to go summit. So they take off and leave that person stranded there, and you see them sitting on rocks all the way up. And he's, you know, I tend to like engage with them and say, hey, is everything okay? Are you doing okay? You know, you want some water? Can we start back down again? You know, who left you here? You know, we could talk about things like that. Sometimes they'll be, you know, they'll be having altitude sickness, or, you know, at one time we came across somebody on Elbert that had pulmonary edema, and we had to walk him down, send him off to the hospital. But for the most part, people are engaging with you, and they'll talk with you, and then just make sure that everything's okay, and you send them on to answer their questions. There are a lot of dogs. I'm a dog lover. You know, I've got a lab, big yellow lab, and he loves to hike, and he loves to walk, and he loves to swim, but I don't take him on the high peaks, mostly because he's 105 pounds. And if he broke a leg, there's no way I could get him back off that mountain. You know, I'm 65 years old. I can't, you know, there's no way I can belay him all the way back down again. It's just not a place where I know people love hanging their dogs, and they think it's cool having them up at 14,000 feet. But really, you know, to me, it's not an environment for a dog. A dog belongs down on the trail maybe, or in your backyard, or out in your neighborhood. But for me, at 14,000 feet, having a dog is sketchy, because you won't be able to care for your dog if they get hurt. And I try and, you know, pass that on to people when we give the talks at REI. But when I'm up there and there's dogs running around, it's like, hey, dog, how are you? You know, I love dogs. If they're on the leash, you think, you know, like was said, hey, thanks for having your dog on leash. We sure appreciate it. If they don't, they'll come running up to you and say hi, so you'll have the dog, and then you can engage the owner on the different, if you're in a wilderness area, or the rules governing leash law. Also, if there's cattle around or anything like that, there's laws regarding if dogs chase after animals, what the owners of the animals can do. So I mean, there's a lot of things you can engage and talk to them about their dogs. It always amazes me when I went up to, anybody been to Chautauqua Park up in Boulder? They have that, gee, my dog is trained, and it's got that little tag on it, and there's like 15 of them running down the trail, and their owners are like 2 miles away. And it's like, oh, but they're within voice command. It says you can't yell loud enough for your dog to come back. And Loretta has a good story about how she hid in the bushes once and pretended to be an animal, and the dog came running over to her after the owner told them not to. So that pay attention when she's talking, because she'll have the better stories than me. If you come across people that are obviously not prepared, like they're wearing flip-flops and they've got a bottle of water in their hand, and that's pretty much it, and they're heading up that mountain, and it's like, well, you can stop and talk to them, like, you know, hey, this, you know, I notice you don't have a whole lot with you. Have you ever been to 14,000 feet before? Or, you know, have you ever been on a mountain before? Have you ever survived a thunderstorm before? Do you have anything, you know, maybe you want to rethink this. I mean, I ask people like, hey, rethink this. This is not a good place for you to be. And also with the weather, hey, do you see those clouds heading over there? If you can see the lightning, you probably need to turn around. Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's great. Keep going. But you trying to impress upon them without sounding like you're laying down the law. Like we're not the police on the mountains. We're You know, we're the encouragers, like, hey, you're going to have a good time, but you have to pay attention. This is, you're not in the city park. You're not over in Wash Park walking around. You're a long way from help. And that's when we give the classes at RAI. It's like, you know, oh, well, they see 8,000 people on the mountain and they think, oh, well, people will help me. It's like, well, no, they're not any smarter than you are about things. And think about, you know, you talk about search and rescue with people and like, hey, they all have jobs. They're all at their work. If you have to call search and rescue, they're down in that city that you were at, you know, when you first started. They have to leave their jobs. They have to go to their gear barn. They have to pick everything up. They have to get it down to the mountain here. And then think about how long it took you to climb up this high. They have to come up this high. So it's going to be a good 4, 5, 6, maybe tomorrow before you see them. So, you know, it's not like you can just pick up your phone and say, hey, I need search and rescue. And they're going to like parachute out of helicopters on top of you. So, you know, you're trying to impress people. You're out here on your own, you know, bring all the right equipment, act accordingly, and everything will be fine. Let's see. And again, when Loretta's on and she's talking about all the animals and the plant life and all the other stuff, all of the things that she talks about are things that I try and incorporate into my little spiel. Like, hey, what is that? You know, what is that over there? What's that plant? What's that flower? I had a partner that was like really into flowers, and he knew everything on the mountain, so I just let him do it. One of the first guys that I did the peak stewarding with. I'm not quite as good about that. Animals, you know, you get to talk about marmots and pikas and all the cool stuff, and they like that kind of talk too. Like, so I would involve a lot of that in what you do. When I'm talking to somebody and they've made a violation, like they're cross-cutting or they're running, I try and do the sandwich technique. It's a coaching thing where you start off with something good, like, hey, you look like you're having a really good time up here. You know, you got all the right gear, you're looking good, you know, something positive, and then put the thing in the middle about what they're doing that you don't like, hey, you know, I noticed you wandered kind of off the trail back there. You know, if we have everybody doing that, by the end of the day, we're not going to have much of a trail left. We'd really appreciate it if you'd stay on the trail or whatever it is that they did wrong. And then you follow it up with something else positive, like, hey, you're going to have a great day. This is an awesome mountain. It's just waiting for you. Get on up there and summit the darn thing, and, you know, go summit all of them, or something positive. So you kind of sandwich in between, so they kind of forget, you know, that, hey, that guy kind of came down on me for that. You know, he's actually a pretty good guy. He talked about all the good things I was doing too. So I try to do that. Anyway, that's about it, I think. Did I miss anything, Hannah?
That was great, Scott. Thanks. Yeah, I think it's just really important to remember to keep the interactions positive and upbeat, and you're not there to go out and ruin somebody's day and tell them what they're doing wrong. We're just there to be teachers. And a lot of people, they don't want to go out and mess with the tundra and cause resource damage. They want to go out and hike and enjoy the mountain, and they just need someone to guide them sometimes during that process.
And I was just going to say, Hannah, that I would say that if I have 5 difficult situations in a day, that would be a really rare day. You just don't get into battles with people very often. And the 2 most common questions I have, and Scott touched on them, by far the 2 most common questions: how long is it going to take us to get to the top? The answer being, I don't know. It depends on you, depends on your conditioning. I usually tell people, you know, a number you can use is 1,000 vertical feet an hour. If you're in good shape, you'll go a lot faster than that. If you're not in good shape, you know, you may not be able to make it in that lot of time. And then the second one is weather. What's the weather going to do? And of course, you know, you just tell them up here it can change. And Scott said something about lightning. I usually tell people when I hear thunder, even in the distance, that's when I turn around and start heading down. I don't want to be caught up here in lightning.
Yeah, I think, you know, trying to get down from the summit before noon is a good rule of thumb, but Sometimes storms come way later, sometimes they come earlier. You never know. So it's always important to keep your eyes on the sky. So we have sort of some logistical things to get through, and we're running a little behind on time, and I want to make sure we have lots of time to listen to Loretta's presentation. So I'm going to try to get through this quickly, and just feel free to ask questions. You can always send me emails with questions. I think that if you're new or returning, I think pairing up with a mentor is great. It's fun. You can kind of see how they spend the day, what they say, how they, what techniques they use to contact hikers. And I've already picked out some mentor days, and these are going to be run by Walking Mountain Science Center. They're going to help us basically organize the day and meet with new and returning stewards at these locations for these dates. And if you want to attend one of these dates, I created this super awesome, let's find it, little calendar. It's on our website. So instead of using the Google Calendar, which was a little hard because I had to add all of the volunteer days, and I go out in the field a lot, and so I created a Peak Steward resources page with everything that you need to be a Peak Steward. You need to go to our website, 14ers.org, click on the How You Can Help, volunteer options. Shoot, I can't see it because of the GoToMeeting thing. Here we go. So this is at the Peak Steward page. It is for you. Right at the very top, Peak Steward calendar. If you click this little link here, it's going to open up this form, and you can say, I'm going to go to Bierstadt. I'm going to go from the Guanilla Pass trailhead. My name is Hannah. I'm going to go June 16th at, I think I'll go at 5 a.m. And then I'll probably spend about 5 hours. Yeah, sure, I'd like buddy. And then itinerary and details. You could say, I'm an experienced steward. You're welcome to join me as a mentee. I'll be at the trailhead all day, starting at 5 a.m. and then maybe leave your contact info and then submit. And then it says refresh the page to see your submission. So refresh the website. It takes a second. And then you scroll past the form and there's the calendar here, and you can see, oh, hey, look, somebody's going to be on Bierstadt on the 16th. Oh, and they want a buddy. I'm going to send them an email and tell them that I'm coming, or I'm going to go meet them there at 5 a.m. So this is, I really wanted to create something that's user-friendly, and that, so we don't end up with 6 Peak Stewards on Bierstadt one day and none the next day. It's a way for other organizations to get involved. Like, for instance, down here, CMC added a date. They're going to be doing some work at Kite Lake. Because of the private land issues that exist there, we really want to have more of a presence there to tell people how to leave no trace. And so they're going to be there a lot, but they want people to know that they're going to be there too, so we can spread out. So they've entered some dates. I believe I put the mentor dates on here. So here's Holy Cross. They basically have a sign up page. where you can go to their sign up page and it says like select the training date, and you can choose if you want to attend these, and you just sign up through their website so we can keep track of people. But if you're a returning steward and you want to be a mentor, I encourage you to go to the calendar and add your days as soon as possible. I know Terry will generally pick out his 4 days like right now at the beginning of the year, and he'll put them on the calendar and he'll just commit to them. I think it's really easy for summer to kind of get away from us and we forget that we're peak stewards. This volunteer program, it's very individual based, it's self-paced, it's, you know, you go out on your own time and your own terms. So I know for me personally, I would need to pick the days and have them on the calendar. That way I know that I'm committing to the days.
Hey, Hannah?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Vaughn. Are we the only ones that have access to that calendar, or really could anybody off the streets just jump in there?
Yeah, pretty much anyone off the streets. And I mean, it's like, I don't know who's going to be on there looking to do anything weird, but if you don't feel comfortable leaving your email address, for instance, you're welcome to write on there, email Hannah for my contact information, for instance.
I'm just curious about somebody who may not have had any training or anything like that, and they're just jumping in.
If somebody just filled out a form and entered that they were going to go somewhere and I didn't know their name or they've never been through training, I would probably reach out to them and ask them, you know, who are you? And I can delete the events too. So I'll be sure to keep an eye on it, and we'll make sure that that's legitimate, you know, people that are adding dates to the calendar and that sort of thing. But yeah, good question, good point.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me go back to the presentation here. We went through the calendar. So yeah, I really want to encourage people to use this. I think it's a really great resource to connect people, but also if you want to spread out, it's there for you too. And just to see what other organizations are doing. There's also a ton of resources on that same page under how you can help, volunteer options, hiker education. I have the new handbook is out. It's got some pretty pictures in it now, and I changed a little bit of the content. The new 2021 Peak Steward Log is there, and a link where you can submit that electronically. I'll also put the paper version too, so if you want to print that out and take it in the field, you'll know what to record. I need to add that. And you're welcome to submit it electronically. You can mail it to me. You can take a picture of the form and email it to me. Or yeah, any number of ways. I will gladly accept logs. I've had people scribble things down on notebook paper and put it in the mail. So I will happily accept any logs in any form. I do need to put the Priority Peaks form together, and I'm behind on that. We always encourage front range peak stewards at front range peaks and the high traffic peaks. So take a look at the high traffic, high hiker use days estimates. There's a flyer on our website, and you know, it's Quandary, Bierstadt, Terry already mentioned them, like Grays and Tories. I'd love to get more peak stewards at Kite Lake this year once that trailhead opens up. We're also running some volunteer projects there. The calendar's there. I'll also add this training video to it. Right now, the 2020 training video is there. Loretta's presentation, the PowerPoint slides are on there if you want to take a look at those after this. Also, her presentation will be on there as well. And then we also have links to our YouTube videos if you want to learn about altitude sickness or what our executive director puts in his pack when he spends a day on a 14er, that kind of thing. So if you can't find, where's the Peak Steward log, where's the handbook that Hannah sent me, go to our website. It's on the volunteer Peak Steward page. Oh, and I really want to emphasize this. I need help with pictures. I know sometimes, well, a lot of times Peak Stewards go on alone, and I understand that it's difficult to get pictures, but I definitely need more pictures. I want to include you guys in our pretty annual report every year, and I feel like every year I just don't have enough pictures of Peak Stewards out in the field. And, we have to give people proof that we're out working and volunteering. And when I see Peak Stewards in the field, I'm like, yes, I can take your picture. But yeah, a good Peak Steward photo is one generally where you can see the Peak Steward working or doing something engaging with the public, or when they're on a 14er, when they're doing an educational event. This top photo I like because you can see the Peak Steward in, CFI hat and name tag, and then you can't really see necessarily the hikers' faces very well. We have permission to use Peak Steward photos, but we don't have permission to use these people's photos. So if they got mad at us, we would have to pull their photo. So small detail, but yeah, really try to take pictures of each other. Try to take pictures of, even if you have someone take a picture of you standing at the trailhead by yourself, just please, 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 I'm begging you. That would be super helpful. And then with COVID, just want to mention, we're in a very different situation than we were in this time last year. Our recommendations this year are basically, if you haven't been vaccinated, wear a mask when you're peak stewarding within 6 feet of others. And vaccinated volunteers may choose, my mom's calling me. Vaccinated volunteers may choose not to wear a mask while volunteering if they wish. Yeah, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's like, read the situation. If you're trying to talk to somebody and they're pulling up their mask and you're vaccinated, maybe pull up your mask too. Make people feel comfortable, make them want to engage with you. I think it's just all about reading the situation. I'm okay with people carpooling if they're vaccinated or from the same household. We're also going to do trail cards and L&T cards again this year, so handing things out to people. We have these little trail cards. I don't know if you can see my face. These are great. They're waterproof and fairly resistant. They just say, basically, don't just summit, give back. They have a little spiel about CFI inside. These cost about 35 cents a piece. They're fairly expensive because they're on waterproof paper. I generally just give these to people that say, how do I get involved? How do I donate? How do I, like, people that show a genuine interest. I don't just stand up there and hand these out to everyone because I don't want to go find them in the parking lot. We are a conservation organization, so use them for the people that want to get involved. And then we also have these Leave No Trace cards that we've co-branded with the Leave No Trace folks, and they have alpine specific Leave No Trace on them. And these are great to hand out to folks who maybe aren't being very LNT. We hand them out to a lot of youth groups. And yeah. So outreach events this year, I have not gotten a lot of invites currently. We used to do the How to Hike a 14er talks at REI, and they're not doing those through the end of summer. So we'll have to revisit those again next year or later this year. But we've done a lot of different events. We've done, job fairs and Earth Day events, and Jennifer did the Buena Vista farmers markets for us last year. And so if you see or hear about anything that you want to go to, let me know and I'll set you up with a table and any materials. And if you want to go, talk at your son's class or go to a farmer's market that's in the neighborhood, let me know and I will make it happen. And then just paperwork stuff really quick. If you haven't sent your waiver to me, please send it. We also need to, I need to send you the Forest Service job hazard analysis. It's basically lists all the potential hazards you could come into contact with while doing a day of service. And you just need to read through it and sign it. It's a requirement by the Forest Service. And then I have name tag. I ordered a lot of name tags for new people. We also have, so here's the name tags. And then we also have some hats we want to give everyone. We want people to look official. We want you to look your part. And I would love to start with offering some pickup days. I know not everyone lives here, but if you live near Denver, our office is in the Golden area. And if you want to come by any of these days, just about any time I can make work. I recently moved and I am less than a mile from the office. So if you want to come at 9 p.m., I can run over from my house. I realize all of these days are weekdays. So if you work during this time or you just can't make it work, please let me know. I'm happy to put materials, hats, name tags in the mail. That's what we did last year. It worked great. We got everyone everything and it worked out just fine. So I'm going to send an email with all of this information again about just paperwork and you know, how to go out and be a peak steward and, you know, links to the calendar and all that. So, and also the pickup days. So we can keep in touch about this. But if you are a returning steward and you want to go out, I encourage you to get out there. People are out hiking and the snow's melting, so let's get started. And yeah, I think that's it for me. And I know we're a little behind, Loretta. I'm so sorry. But I'm going to turn it over to Loretta now. I need to stop sharing. And make you a presenter. All right, Loretta, you should be able to share your screen now.
I think it's coming up just a moment.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, see if we can get it actually going to the slideshow. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I hope I provide you with some information that you find exciting and interesting. The alpine is a unique ecosystem. The combination of heavy snowfall, bitter winds, low temperatures, and mountainous topography creates the most severe climate in the world. The plants and animals who have inhabited this ecosystem have been rigorously selected and have adapted to survive. Much of my presentation focuses on those adaptations. I hope you find it interesting. Colorado's 14,000-foot mountains are a magnet for recreational use by people from all across the US and the world. The relative ease of climbing these mountains makes them very attractive. Many, if not most, of the visitors to this extremely sensitive environment don't know how sensitive it is, and just how a few footsteps can destroy the beauty they have come to enjoy. If we are going to change those behavior patterns that are causing the resource damage, we need to educate. Unfortunately, our educational efforts have been limited. So we're asking you to help us out here. I have spent my career in the alpine and know that most people are receptive to learn about it. They just don't mean to impact the area. They don't understand it or how their actions can either protect or destroy this unique ecosystem. My hope is that every individual who hears this presentation will take one thing from it and share it with someone, anyone. So Colorado is made up of essentially 5 life zones. There's the grasslands, which are below 5,600 feet. Sometimes it's broken into grasslands in eastern Colorado and semi-desert shrublands in western Colorado. We then have the foothills from about 6,000 to 7,000 feet, and that's sometimes broken into the foothill forests in eastern Colorado, where ponderosa, Doug fir, juniper, those plants actually are primary, and then the pinyon juniper woodlands in western Colorado. We then move up into the montane life zone, and that's from about 6,000, 7,000 to 9,500 feet. Then this subalpine, and finally the alpine from about 11,500 to 14,426 feet. Just to put these into some perspective, Denver, Boulder, Pueblo, those are all grasslands. Golden, Colorado Springs, those are foothills. Silverthorne, Aspen, Montane, Leadville, subalpine. And I think everybody knows that Colorado's highest peak is Mount Elbert. It is at an elevation of 14,426 feet. It was edited on the U.S. Geological Survey site on July 15th of 2019 from an elevation of 14,433 feet. Many maps are still going to show it as 14,433. Colorado's lowest point is kind of on that corner, northwest corner of Kansas, where the Arickaree River flows into Kansas. It's right there at that tri-state corner of Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas. And it is obviously a grassland, and it's at 3,315 feet above sea level. So sometimes it's easier to see these areas in pictures, and you can see that there is a difference between the western slope and the eastern slope of Colorado. So Colorado's climate by elevation. With increased elevation, we have temperature decreases, and that's usually between 3 and 5 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the atmospheric conditions. That change is actually greater when it is sunny. So precipitation increases, and the growing season dramatically decreases. We all know that our climate is changing. This is a graphic illustration of the potential impacts of temperature and precipitation changes that are foreseen with climate change. And you can see that our alpine will shrink. And even in my career, I have seen the shrinking of the alpine environment. So the combination, like I said, of heavy snowfall, bitter winds, low temperatures, this is the most severe climate in the world. The alpine makes up about 3% of Colorado's landmass, or approximately 1% of the lands in the contiguous 48 states. So the alpine is beautiful, but it can be very harsh. There is almost constant wind in the alpine. Alpine winds have been recorded at over 200 miles per hour, with 75-mile-per-hour gusts common. There is low effective precipitation. If you remember from the climate at elevation slide, the precipitation increases as elevation increases, but most of that precip comes in the form of snow. And when those constant winds meet that snow, most of it is blown off of the mountain and into the trees, making the precipitation ineffective. This winter, watch the mountains and you'll see proof of this action. There is twice as much UV radiation, so please wear your sunscreen, and 25% more light than at sea level. That clarity of light confuses one's sense of scale. So faraway mountains are so sharp and clear that they seem much closer. This extreme wash of light and the intensity of that full light spectrum gives you almost a sense of euphoria. And I think it might be one of the reasons why people are so attracted to the alpine. There are temperature extremes. The mean annual temperature in the alpine is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Records show temperatures as low as 70 degrees below zero. Combine this with wind chill, and you cannot expose your skin at those temperatures without instant frostbite. So all of these factors lead to a significantly reduced growing season, typically 3 months or less, and present challenges for the flora and fauna who call the alpine their home. So the adaptations of the flora and fauna are some of the things that I'd like to discuss today. So life survives at the outer and upper extremes in the alpine environment because it has been rigorously selected and has adapted to these harsh conditions. The more severe the environmental conditions, the more pronounced are the adaptations for plant and animal survival. So the first adaptation are chemical adaptations. There are large portions of alpine plants that are marked with the distinctive red color of anthocyanins in their stems and leaves. The anthocyanins really depend on, the coloring depends on the plant's sap. So if the plant sap is acid, you're going to see red colors, and if it's alkaline, you're going to see blue colors. As we all know, plant pigments are always present, but are usually masked by the greater amounts of green chlorophyll, and are therefore only visible when the chlorophyll is reduced or absent, or when the pigments are in greater abundance. In most alpine plants, the redness only appears in those cells that are exposed to light. A common plant in the alpine is the alpine avon with the little origami folded leaves. When these leaves are spread open, they are green inside, but when you release them, they assume their complex folding and only the red shows. So this is a really amazing adaptations. These anthocyanins are a product of the carbohydrates that are stored in the roots from the previous growing season. When rapid growth begins in the early spring, like now, part of those carbohydrates are incorporated into building new plant tissue and part into anthocyanins. Those anthocyanins are capable of converting incidental light rays, even light rays coming through a snowpack, into heat to warm the plant's tissues. And that's pretty important in the chilly temperatures of the alpine spring. Those plants which have an abundance of anthocyanins endure the cold better than greener plants, and the anthocyanin production is an important factor in cold hardiness. The red coloration of the leaves also may camouflage the leaves from herbivores who are blind to red wavelengths, or signal unpalatability, since anthocyanin synthesis often coincides with synthesis of unpalatable phenolic compounds. So dwarfism, or short stature, almost all alpine plants are tiny in size. We often say that the best way to enjoy the alpine is to lie on your belly. It's a good way for humans to view the tiny plants, since wind speed and pressure increases with height above the ground. So the environment is colder and windier at a person's height than at a plant's height. If there's less wind and more radiation, it's warmer. So the small size is advantageous because it keeps the plant snug down close to the ground out of the worst of the alpine weather. It requires less energy for the production of plant tissue, so that more energy can be utilized for seed production. The dwarfing typically involves only the growth shoots or the green parts of the plant, making the flowers seem larger in proportion. Pre-formation of buds. So flower buds in the alpine plants are often begun early in the previous year's growing season, sometimes several years before, and are usually well formed by the end of the summer so that they are safely protected for the winter. Studies on this alpine buttercup pinpointed a cell that eventually gave rise to the yellow flower. It formed the first year, divided many times during the second growing season, formed a bud during the third growing season, and eventually bloomed in the fourth summer. The pre-formation of buds means that those buds are standing ready to burst forward at the first sign of warming temperatures. Early flowering leaves the major part of the meager summer warmth for the ripening of seeds, a process which requires heat that flowering with the pre-formation of buds does not. The alpine has a very short growing season. The growth of the plant, as well as the setting and ripening of seeds, requires the warmth of the summer. But with the preset bud formation, the flowering doesn't require the full warmth. This allows for the maximum time to ensure that the seeds have plenty of time to ripen, thus protecting plant reproduction. Early growth is also made possible because of the large amounts of starches and sugars that are stored as carbohydrates in below ground parts during the previous summer's growing season. Alpine plants are a little like icebergs. A tiny percentage of the plant is above the ground, much like the small percentage of icebergs that show above the surface of the ocean. When the plants are dormant during the winter's low temperatures, the reserve of starches and sugars are not reduced. As temperatures warm in the spring, the accumulated carbohydrates are converted for rapid growth. During this period, the plant is using its food faster than it can be made through photosynthesis, and the carbohydrate stores are depleted. Many alpine plants grow at a deficit until its growth is about 75 to 90% complete for the season. Then the plant growth or expansion slows and the stores are replenished. By the onset of dormancy in the fall, the underground carbohydrates are back up to the highest level of the year. This knowledge helps us in our alpine restoration efforts. We attempt to transplant during the spring or the fall when the roots have substantial carbohydrate stores that helps that plant to establish itself and fight the stress of being moved and exposed to the elements, even briefly. So cushion plants that are 4 inches in diameter are 40 years old and have a 6-foot taproot. The root not only stores the abundant carbohydrate, but also probes for deep water sources and anchors the plant against those constant winds. These in the picture are closer to 10 to 12 inches across, making them approximately 100 to 120 years old and likely have taproots that measure closer to probably 20 feet. So most alpine plants are perennials. A perennial plant lives more than 2 years. An annual plant has to germinate, grow the vegetation, flower, and die in a single year. Advantageous to alpine plants because it would be very difficult in the short growing season for a plant seed to germinate, produce stems, leaves, flowers, produce seeds for the new crop of plants within a single growth season. It puts annual plants at a significant disadvantage when competing for nutrients, space, and water, especially considering drought cycles. A perennial plant can just add to what is already established. Depends on a stable root system and is able to survive without flowering in a particularly bad year. In the alpine, some plants are 10 to 15 years old before they ever flower. The old man of the mountain, shown in the picture here, typically spends its first 6 to 8 years of life producing only leaves and storing reserves in its thick underground root. When enough carbohydrate has accumulated, the plant forms floral buds. The following year, the plant blooms, seeds mature, and the plant dies. Unlike sunflowers at lower elevations, which are annuals, the alpine sunflower compensates for the short, cold summers by being a long-lived perennial. Another way the alpine buttercup improves its chances of survival is by using the intense ultraviolet radiation available in the alpine to its advantage. I mentioned before that the production of viable seeds requires heat. You can see how shiny the petals are in the picture. This amazing little plant is using its shiny petals to reflect sunlight onto its developing seeds and can raise the internal temperature of its flowers 12 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. It also, that warmth attracts pollinators who are seeking that warmth. The viviparous bistort has the potential to produce in two different ways. These plants form vegetative bulbils along their spike and white flowers at its tip. Although the flowers have the potential for producing seeds, viable seeds of this plant have never been reported in the Rocky Mountains. Instead, those bulbils drop from the parent plant and establish themselves immediately, sometimes sprouting, like the one shown on my hand, before they even shed by the parent plant. These plants essentially give life birth. There are whole habitats that exist in the alpine known as cushion plant communities. These plants are the perfect example of leaf and flower adaptations in alpine plants. The small, low-growing mats allow the wind to flow over them just like wind over an airplane wing. At the same time, there is maximal exposure of the leaf surface for photosynthesis. Temperatures are often several degrees higher on the inside of the cushion plants than on the outside. The colder it is outside, the greater the distance or the difference. So the outer parts of the cushion plant will slow the impact of the wind and allow the leaves and dirt and all those things to accumulate within the plant and start some soil production. So an inch of soil production in the alpine takes approximately 1,000 years to form. So radial symmetry or rosette growth, like the big-rooted spring beauty, may be even less exposed to the desiccating winds of a cushion plant, since it may be flatter to the ground. It grows in the warmer air at the soil surface and receives direct sunlight as well as reflected heat from beneath. This photo shows the plant during a wet spell. During a dry spell, the plant will lie flat against the ground. There's little or no vertical separation between the leaves. Thus, a happy balance is attained between the greatest exposure to light and the least exposure to cold, wind damage, and drying. Radial symmetry is also especially efficient for plants whose moisture, light, and nutrients come from all directions. In the alpine, there's no trees or large shrubs to shade or to commandeer soil moisture. You'll notice that this plant flowers along its outer edge. This provides for greater warmth and ensures seed ripening. The big-rooted spring beauty is also a succulent. And that combined with that rosette form provides even greater protection against high altitude desiccation. The leaves are coated with a waxy surface, preventing evaporation of the precious moisture. The leaves of the plant have a profusion of interior cells filled with a slightly mucilaginous sap. Unlike watery sap of most plants, these characteristics are similar to desert plants like cactus and cactus-like plants such as jade and aloe vera. The alpine forget-me-not is a good example of an alpine plant with dense pubescence. These densely pubescent plants look pale gray-green, softness that is even more distinctive when the plant is not in bloom. Beneath those various coatings, this plant is just as green as lowland plants. The hairs are known as pubescence. The hairs protect the plant stomata, or the pores through which the plant breathes. The hairs diffuse the strong alpine sunlight, reducing both the intensity and directness of that reaching the leaf surface, since light levels on a mountaintop are so much more intense than at sea level. Although this is not sufficient to upset photosynthesis, it may cause cell damage if combined with high reflection from rock and snow surfaces. The same insulating hairs can measurably reduce water loss, and that's, of course, of immense value in areas of sparse moisture and high winds. So while the hair reflects visible light rays, they trap heat rays, warming the surface of the plant in a greenhouse-like effect. When the alpine forget-me-not is in bud, the bud looks like little elfin earmuffs. Because of this furriness, the alpine forget-me-not is one of the earliest flowering plants at very high elevations. They're up there flowering right now. So some alpine plants, like this alpine poppy, which is one of our rare plants, have dark hairs on their buds, which absorb even more heat than the white hairs, warming the developing flower within. So mosses, lichens are really common in the alpine. Lichens, mosses, and club mosses have minimal requirements for survival. So lichens are formed from a fungus and an alga. The fungus forms the tough outer layer, while the inner layer contains algal funds enmeshed in fungal threads. Lichens have the ability to absorb more than their own weight in water when precipitation occurs. Any of you that have traveled like me across a densely lichened talus slope during or shortly after a rainstorm will know just how slick these plants can become. Mosses, too, are sponge-like. Mosses curl up their leaves really tight against their stems when they're dry, like in that first picture, and then unfolding them to absorb moisture through the whole leaf surface during rain or heavy dew. Mosses and lichens are non-vascular plants that absorb water and nutrients mainly through their leaves and harvest carbon dioxide and sunlight to create food through photosynthesis. Mosses and lichens reproduce using spores, not seeds, and they have no flowers. So grasses and sedges have narrow leaves and stems that are not likely to be torn by the alpine winds. Their flowers are reduced to the essentials, no bright petals or cupped sepals, just reproductive parts enclosed in a simple protective envelope. Okay, so I know that you guys are all on mute, so I'm gonna hope that you guys get these right. Okay, the adaptations, pubescence and dwarfism in the alpine forget-me-not, the big-rooted spring beauty, leaf orientation, and succulence. chemical adaptations of anthocyanins in the alpine avon, and preformation of buds and heating of the seeds by reflecting UV rays. So I'm going to go into the alpine fauna. Oh, sorry, went too far. Animals have also adapted to this harsh alpine climate. Life cycles may be stretched over several seasons. Larval stages are accomplished over several summers instead of a month. Litters or broods are usually reduced, often to one. Maturation is at a quickened rate. So physiological adaptations may occur in metabolism that makes it possible to remain either all or part of the year in the alpine. So insects. Insects are, of course, extremely important as pollinators on the tundra, especially flies. At lower elevations, bees are primary pollinators, but bees are immobilized at temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So often you can see a bee flying around up there. A cloud comes over the sun, and that bee falls to the ground, sitting down in the tundra, shaking and shivering to get their body temperature back up. Usually it takes that sun coming back out, and they'll take off on their merry way. But with the lower energy requirements of flies and the ability to work in really restricted conditions, they assume a considerable importance in the alpine region. The number of birds on the alpine is relatively small. This is the only bird that lives on the tundra all year. The ptarmigan is a perfect example that demonstrates Bergmann's law, which animals in cold climates tend to be larger, having a better ratio of volume to exposed area, making it easier for them to maintain body heat. Adult ptarmigans will sit out a storm in relative security. They typically nestle in the snow in a group, so individuals lose little of their body heat. In a tight circle, they expose even less surface in proportion to their mass. In addition, ptarmigans' legs and feet are so heavily feathered in the winter that they look kind of like they're wearing pantaloons, giving both foot warmth and snowshoes for crossing the snow. So how many ptarmigan do you all see in this picture? I know all of you who have seen it before know there are ptarmigan in this picture. There's at least 4 ptarmigan shown in this picture. Their protection is camouflage. Their predators in the alpines are birds of prey who hunt by sight, because these ground nesting birds will stand still when they feel threatened. They are easy prey for off-leash dogs, and one of our more recent endangered species, or sorry, rare and threatened species in the alpine. So bighorn sheep, elk, mountain goats are regulars in the alpine. Even these mammals will only remain above tree line in the winter if they are forced to. Grazing opportunities are severely limited. So, mountain goats. There is no evidence that mountain goats inhabited Colorado during historical times. They should be considered non-native to the state. Likewise, most authorities consider mountain goats to be an introduced species in Colorado. They're sure-footed and agile creatures, and they are most at home on rocky ridges, precipitous cliffs, and high alpine tundra, seeking the high altitudes to avoid their predators. Their hooves are adapted to those rugged slopes by being flexible, kind of like rubber. They can jump from rock to rock. These mammals are herbivores, and they eat grasses, sedges, ferns, mosses, lichens, twigs, leaves, and such. Mountain goats have thick white furs to keep them warm in the winter, and they shed one of their layers during the warmer summers. Residing on these steep mountain homes is not without risk. Mountain goats are often killed by avalanche slides, especially late in the winters. Their skeleton is built such that they can place all 4 of their hooves onto a ledge that is 6 inches by 2 inches wide, about the size of a dollar bill. So mountain goats are not goats. They're more related to antelopes and are part of the Bovidae family. Males are called billies, females are called nannies, and babies are called kids. The mountain goat changes its social grouping seasonally. They live in big groups in the winter and smaller groups or alone in the summer. The male goats are dominant during the breeding season. However, during the non-breeding season, the adult females are dominant. Mountain goat hierarchies are determined early in the kids' playing behavior. The stronger, more dominant kids become the leaders of the group. Based on observations of interactions between mountain goats and Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, mountain goats are often considered more aggressive and a dominant species and appear to be capable of displacing bighorns. They have sharp horns that can puncture the side of other goats or even bighorns. They can be quite aggressive to humans, so try to keep your distance, as they will help themselves to your food and are extremely enticed by urine. Suitable bighorn habitat includes steep, broken terrain, which serves as an escape cover, and vegetation types that provide high visibility and forage, such as grasslands and alpine tundra. They're primarily grazers, but they will also consume browse. They have special hosts, an excellent sense of balance. They have amazingly strong legs that helps them to climb the steep Rocky Mountains. Every time I see them climbing, I think, wow, I wish I was that strong and that fast. They're not well adapted to deep snow, and therefore winter snowpack can really limit their distribution and their survival. Their digestive system acts as a survival mechanism. They have a complex 4-part stomach, which allows the sheep to gain important nutrients from dry, hard forage. They also will eat large amounts of vegetation very quickly and then retreat to the safety of the cliffs and ledges. And here they can thoroughly reach you and digest their food away from possible predators. So the chipping and fraying of their horns is called bruising. That usually is caused by fighting, but it may be caused by accidents or by digging. Rams achieve full curl at 7 to 8 years of age. Ewes typically will live 10 to 12 years, and rams have a slightly shorter life cycle. And that might be due to, in the fall, the rams compete for the ewes by having butting contests. They will charge at each other at speeds of more than 20 miles per hour, their foreheads crashing with a crack that can be heard more than a mile away. Those battles can sometimes last as long as 24 hours and may result in the death of one of the rams. A Rocky Mountain bighorn's ram's horns can weigh as much as 30 pounds. That's more than all the other bones in their body combined. Females, or ewes, also have horns, but they're smaller in size. The development of Colorado's high country increasingly blocks bighorn migration, weakening herds by denying them genetic diversity. If you have difficulty remembering the difference between goats and sheep, there's a very cute video that's available on YouTube from Banff National Park, and it explains the difference between mountain goats, and bighorn sheep. There's also one that defines the difference between black bear and grizzly bear. Just look up Banff National Park and you'll find that video. There are significantly more small mammals that remain in the alpine year-round. They survive the winter by storing food, hibernation, or incessant hunting. So pika are small members of the rabbit family. Their ears have diminished in size to small round ones that are not as likely to freeze. Tails, ears, other extremities that are subject to rapid heat loss are often reduced or missing on animals in cold climates. In addition, they have fur on the soles of their feet, provides a non-skid device, aiding in purchase on precipitous rock surfaces, and also helps to keep them warm. Pika dens are often discovered by the Lilliputian haystacks at their doorsteps. Pika begin preparing food for the winter by mid-July and continue until all available food is snow-covered. Do you remember me talking about the anthocyanins in the plants? Well, here's the continuation of that cycle. Pika gather inordinate amounts of alpine avens because those same anthocyanins help to prevent mold and bacterial growth in their food stores. Until those plants are dry, those anthocyanins are poisonous to pika. The pika's vegetarian diet is not very high in calories, and a pika must fill its stomach almost hourly to meet its energy needs. Pika are sensitive to warm temperatures in the summer and select talus habitats that provide a cool refuge during the summer months. Increasing summer temperatures may be particularly dangerous to pika, as extended exposure to temperatures above 80 degrees can be lethal. While the pika can regulate their temperature by resting under the talus, increased summer temperatures can reduce their ability to collect enough vegetation to survive the winter, filling their stomach every hour, and reduce their ability for the juvenile pika to leave the talus where they were born and find a territory in their own talus patch. Pika can die in 6 hours when exposed to temperatures above 77.9 degrees Fahrenheit, if individuals can't find refuge from the heat. In warmer environments, such as during midday sun or at lower elevation limits, pika typically become inactive and withdraw into the cooler talus openings. In order to obtain maximal food value, pika, like rabbits, are able to re-ingest their fecal matter, which is actually a high source of protein and energy value. Pika also preserve their body moisture in these dry climates by depositing almost crystalline uric acid, which is that white nitrogenous salt deposit you often see on the boulder surfaces. Pika have been observed to be active during every month of the year, and there is no evidence that they hibernate. They have to spend the months of July through September or October storing enough food for 9 or 10 months. Remember, filling their stomach hourly. Pika female will give birth to a litter in the spring, and then she will immediately get pregnant again. And if that first litter doesn't survive because of predation or cold or disease, she'll deliver that second litter. If the first litter does survive, her body reabsorbs the fetuses. So marmots, like ptarmigan, are comparatively large animals, relatives of woodchucks. Marmots will eat themselves fat in the summer and hibernate all winter, with their body temperatures sinking to almost 32 degrees Fahrenheit. They emerge in the late spring, sprawling on a warm rock surface in what seems to be blissful enjoyment of sunshine and warmth. So although all these plants and animals have adapted well to this harsh environment, they've not adapted to the presence of humans, and especially the large numbers who seek out the 54 highest peaks in Colorado, known as the 14ers. This is why I share this information. I don't know how many times you have or you will hear, oh, the trail is slick, I'm just going to walk over here in the grass. Now you have the knowledge to explain that it isn't really grass like we have in our neighborhood parks. These plants, insects, animals live at the outer and upper extremes in the alpine environment because they've been rigorously selected and adapted to these harsh conditions, but they've not adapted to us. As few as 5 footprints on alpine plants can kill them. We need to recognize that we're visiting their home and take care not to destroy it. We need to stay on the trails, the brown stuff, keep our distance from wildlife, keep our dogs on a leash, never feed the wildlife, keep your voice low and your music to yourself so that others can experience the joys of nature. Carry out your waste and your dog's waste from the alpine environment. I think these plants and animals have enough to deal with. And in the words of the Lorax, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Thanks.
Thanks, Loretta. I always enjoy your presentation, and I get something out of it every year. And I'm just always blown away by the alpine plants and how they're just so crazy adapted, and they're small but mighty. And I'm just wondering how many years it's going to take until they adapt to the human boot. Maybe they'll grow some crazy spikes on them, or they'll start biting or something.
Yeah, like when we do the TUI defense system, I like to call those big alpine thistles TUIs.
Yeah.
And the little flop of horrors. And I sometimes ask for a TUI defense system. So setting up those alpine thistles right up next to the trail, you might just have to line the trails with them for a while.
Great idea. I love it. Okay, I remembered one other thing that Mary asked me to touch on that I just want to talk about really quick. If you're on a Front Range 14er, you might deal with press sometimes. It's happened to me, it's happened to our Peak Stewards, where they are out there and want to ask you questions about what you're doing. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. You are welcome to answer and just tell them what you're doing and that you're a volunteer Peak Steward. I try to always keep it light, and my boss recommended to me, he said, give them answers to the questions to provide the story that you want to tell, not the story that they're trying to get, which I think is great advice. I think to focus on the positives and share what you're there to share. You don't have to answer questions. You don't have to answer all of them. You don't have to answer any of them. And I'm just happy that you're all here and came out today, and I appreciate each and every one of you for spending a couple hours with us this morning. I think education is just so important. I mean, CFI can go out and we can build these perfect trails, but if people don't stay on them and learn some of these basic L&T things, there's really no point to all of it. So I know
Hey,
that
Hannah?
we're, yeah, Terry.
Just one other thing that just popped into my mind while you were talking that we didn't cover was this whole question of if you are up there as a steward and you come on somebody who's been hurt and obviously needs help. Obviously, we're not going to tell you don't help somebody like that, but you need to be aware that if you render first aid, you are no longer acting under the umbrella of CFI. You've decided that's a personal choice you have to make. There is protection, I think, under Colorado's Good Samaritan laws, but just be aware that CFI cannot guarantee you protection of liability if you render first aid on your own, which doesn't mean don't do it. Just know what the risk is.
Yeah, and I always recommend call 911 if you have service, obviously, and use your best judgment. And first aid classes are pretty cheap. I think wilderness first aid is pretty cheap. They do, I think it's a 3-day class, 2-day class, but it's great for anyone that spends a lot of significant time in the backcountry, and they provide you with tools and tips to get someone down a mountain with a broken leg in creative ways, and you go through different scenarios. I also encourage you to buy your CORSAR card. That stands for Colorado Search and Rescue. You basically spend, I think it's $3 for a 1-year membership. You're basically paying into a fund. It's a fund that then will support the search and rescue folks should they need to rescue you or a family member. It's basically like paying into insurance a little bit and supporting a great group of people that are out here rescuing folks that are unprepared, and some of them are prepared and just get into trouble. The search and rescue folks told me that the most common story they hear is it starts with, well, I was with my friend and they kept going up the mountain and I went down. And it's usually when people separate that things go wrong, people get lost. But they're all volunteers, and so I encourage you to spend $3 and pay into that fund. Does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to, we're over time, I realize, so if you have questions, email me. You can also stay on the call too if you have some questions. I'll be here for a little while. And I just really appreciate everyone's time and your support this season. And I'm here for you, and I'm here to support you all season. And if you go out and you're like, I don't know how to do this, or I'm curious what the wilderness restrictions are in this particular place, or just general questions, send me an email. I'm happy to support you, and I want you to be successful and enjoy the program, because we enjoy having your support. So thanks again for being here. Enjoy your Saturday. It's a beautiful day, so I hope everyone can get outside and enjoy the sunshine. Oh, and maybe can everyone turn on their cameras too before you go, and I want to take a group picture. If you can turn your camera on, since we can't all be together, we can be together in spirit. Yay! Awesome. Is that everybody? Cool. All right. 1, 2, 3. Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Hannah. See you soon. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Your email.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I read the guide a week or two ago, and I remember something in there about checking in on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How does that work if you check in someplace where there's signal, and you check out someplace and there's no signal? Or
That's a great question, because I get that question a lot, and I think that I need to reword the check-in policy. The check-in policy is basically just good wilderness practice. It's when you go out, tell someone where you're going and that when you plan to return. So you don't need to check in daily. You need to check in before you leave, or you need to tell someone where you're going before you leave and when you plan to come back. And that if you don't come back by that time, give them a time they should be worried by. So say, if I don't check in at 6 p.m. tomorrow, start worrying about me the next morning at 5 or 6. that and call search and rescue. Or and if you're going to be out for 4 days, you know, tell them I'm going to be gone for 4 days. I'm not going to have cell service, and then check in when you get back. So you don't need to check in every day. You just need to check in after your day of service, once you're back in town and can tell your contact that you're back. So I hope that makes sense. It is worded a little weird, I think, but yeah, it's just something you should do every time you go out. If you don't have someone that you want to tell on a particular day, or you leave at like 3 in the morning and you don't want to wake them up, you can send me an email. You can, yeah, a number of different ways to let somebody know. I'll sometimes call my mom and tell her I'm going somewhere, and then I'll text her a picture when I get back, you know, and then she knows I'm back. So lots of different ways to do it, and it's just we want everyone to be safe. This can be a very solo activity, so you know, we want to make sure that our peak stewards come home at the end of the day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey Tim, I use an inReach device, and I really like it. I can send messages to my husband, text messages anytime, because he worries about me. I'm out there a lot, and so I use an inReach device even as part of my Forest Service check-ins. So inReach or Spot or any of those, that just gives you that extra security and also provides peace of mind for our loved ones.
What are the names of those, Loretta?
I use a Garmin inReach device.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other one is a Spot device. The Spot device is a one-way device, so you can send a message saying you're okay to your loved ones, but they can't send you a message. The inReach, like Scott has there, that device actually allows two-way communication.
Okay, thank you.
Hannah, did you see Margaret's question on the
Yeah,
chat?
I did. Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, about L&T cards. Yeah, I think you swung by the office last year. Do you live in Golden? Yeah, or Lakewood?
No,
or
Conifer, but I can swing by. I'll be down there.
I'm happy to mail stuff too. Again, like just let me know what you want. I have thousands of L&T cards. I could put, you know, 50 in the mail or 20, and just send you a little box of stuff.
I'll get in touch with you because I'll be down there next week. So just
perfect.
Around.
Yeah, so anyone that needs to pick up their name tag, I ordered name tags for everyone that showed up on or that filled out a waiver by the 25th. And then I'll do a next round of name tags probably on Monday. So if you haven't done your waiver, send it in. I'll order name tags for anyone else that needs one. And then they usually come within 5 days, so or less. So we'll get everyone set up and looking official, and we'll do it. Awesome.
And I have a question on the forum.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I've always been puzzled by the unprepared for the alpine environment and sort of your take on that. I know Alpine Rescue did a survey at Mount Bierstadt one time for the 10 essentials, and they found that something like 90% of the people did not have the 10 essentials. So that's the really high bar, I think. I think, was it Scott that mentioned sort of the flip-flops and the water bottle might be toward the bottom threshold. Any suggestions on how to, I want to give you a meaningful number, but I tend to think more if you don't have the 10 essentials, then you're unprepared, but that's unrealistic, I think.
I agree. I think that it's kind of subjective, and I will usually say that somebody's unprepared if they visually look unprepared. You don't have to ask them, every single person, do you have the 10 essentials? Right. Just look at them, and if they don't have very much water, say they have a tiny little pack. I mean, I see the ultra runners going up there in their short shorts and nothing else.
Right.
So that person is, I would consider unprepared. The person with maybe a tiny, tiny day pack that you're like, could they put a raincoat in there? Could they put some more layers in that pack? Kind of judging by the size of their pack, you could tell if they're unprepared. You know, do they have 3 liters of water with them, or they just have a tiny little water bottle? So, I mean, really the most important thing to record is hiker contacts. That's like the most measurable outcome that we have as Peak Stewards, that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing out there. So hiker contacts is always the thing to focus on, and then everything else is really bonus and interesting information, and it all goes to the Forest Service and it eventually makes its way to Congress. So it's pretty cool.
Right. Thanks. I think I've been calling it about right then. So.
And then I see Mary's question about Lincoln Democrat Ross. We're all not really sure what's going on with that either, and we're just sort of waiting like you. And I've also been checking 14ers.com. We think the landowner out there is just sort of showing that he owns the property and he can shut it down at any time, kind of like a warning, but also legally, if you let people cross your land over and over again, it creates an easement. So if you shut that land down temporarily, it basically breaks up that easement where people could then claim the land as their own in the future. So
I was wondering, oh, sorry, if there's a little bit of background noise.
Is that a train?
It's power washing of the windows. So we know, just for anybody who doesn't know, I'm really closely tied with the .com community and am one of the admins on the Facebook page. And we understand there's some close communication happening between the CMC and the landowner. So like, word of mouth is getting around the community about what the situation is, and I just didn't know if CFI maybe had more of a direct connection to have updates for when that situation is resolved, hence when stewards can go out there. But Hannah, I wonder if you guys aren't as closely tied to it, you know, I can certainly help keep you updated and maybe more directly update you guys, and then from there, you know, stewards can know when it's okay to go out there again, because it's a very confusing situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, whoever kind of hears first, we should just sort of sound the alarm. We have planned work out there this year. We're running volunteer projects and multiple volunteer projects. So I've been keeping my eye on it, and we're all a little curious. And Lloyd, the executive director, he feels like it'll be open fairly soon. That's kind of a fingers crossed sort of thing. And I know Lloyd's had multiple conversations with the landowner. The landowner does want to keep the peaks open and accessible. He wants people to take care of them. And I think that's why we should really do some good stewarding work out there this year, and kind of work with CMC too, and just make sure that people are staying on the trails out there. It's getting trashed. The bathroom lines are crazy long and people are parking all over the place. So helping the landowner out will show that we care, and we're responsible adults that deserve to hike there. So yeah, definitely, if you hear Mary, let us know, and I'll do the same too for everybody else.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Are there any other questions? I think that's it. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. And then if Terry and Loretta and Scott could just stay on for a minute at the end. But yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.